It's a post-lunch session. I don't know why they chose me to be the speaker. I just hope to Lord that I don't fall asleep during my own presentation. So let me take a quick check. How many of you at this time of the day want to listen to a story? Oh, shameless people. I thought that you would want the wisdom of the world kind of descending, and I can see that you're looking for stories. So here goes. So all of us want to do outstanding jobs. I mean, we just want to be the best in whatever that we choose to do. I don't think we are people who come to work saying, today I'm going to give a lousy output. I'm going to make life really difficult for the people that work with me, particularly my boss. I don't think we do anything of that kind. We want to succeed. We want to do well. And there was this gentleman who was very good in his craft. And this man was an archer. He was the best in the world. Every time you put a target, twang, right in the center. So that is how good he was. Somebody nudged him and said, but you're not the best. So what do you mean I'm not the best? I am the best. 10 out of 10, every time. And I can splice through arrows that have gone right to the center. So that's fine. But you're still not as good as a Zen master. So this guy goes out and says, I got to find the Zen master. He goes and finds the Zen master. Says, okay. So you see that tree yonder. You see that small branch. There is a flower. And I want you to knock it off. And it's like in the distance. So this man, he says, oh, that's easy. Takes out an arrow, twang, right in the middle. He got it. And he looks at the Zen master, he says, am I ready? Zen master says, I got one more small test for you. And he takes him to one of those bridges that you'll find across a chasm, which is made of rope. And it's not those where you have those handrails and things like that. So when you step on it, the whole thing keeps moving. So he says, now what I want you to do is aim again at the same flower and do this time round. So this is when the archer, he gets on there, looks at the flower. He's really worried because where he is, that's really a great chasm. I mean, if he's going to fall, that's it. Curtain's over. So he comes back and he tells the Zen master, can you do it? Zen master says, of course. And he goes up. He made no pretensions. He just lazily took out his arrow, bow, twang. The bridge was shaking. He comes back and he tells him this. He says, you have great skills, but the one that you still need to master is the mind. And perhaps what this presentation is about is what Sanjay talked about, just not about mastering the mind, but mastering the heart. All of us want to grow in our own careers. And I just thought that maybe it will be good for us to spend a bit of time trying to look at how can we become Zen masters in our own space of what we do at work every day. So, first, all of what I'm going to do is share some stories from my life. I remember my first job. All of you do, right? You remember your first job, your first boss. I still remember. This gentleman was awesome. One of the things that he did very well was he helped me navigate the firm. He's a guy who will tell me almost to a point of saying, this is where you have the restroom. Be careful of this and that person there. He's the production manager. And by the way, I started my life out on the production floor in a manufacturing setup. This is what we expect. When we get into organizations, we want somebody to help navigate. The other one that we expect is how do we get constructive feedback? The most constructive feedback that I've ever had in my life happened this way. Now, this British firm expected you to really dress up. Even when you come onto the plant, you're supposed to make sure that you're well dressed. I used to do everything right, but I never used to polish my shoes. So they were always muddy, dusty. I never cared about it. One day it rained. And when it rained, it just so happened that the shoes got cleaned. When the shoes got cleaned, my boss looked at me and he says, Nathan, your shoes are shining. Now, how do I tell him that this is not me, this is because of the rain? So I just mumbled something. I ran out of the room. But what do you think I did the next day before I set out for work? I polished my shoes. I still polish my shoes every day. Not for anything. I think that the greatest lesson of how to give constructive feedback is catch people doing something right at least once a day. We are quintessential auditors. We are great engineers. We are people who have such a scientific bent of mind, we can rip through anything and find faults. How do we give feedback that is constructive? Catching people doing something right. And of course, how do we coach each other? Several years ago, I used to be an athlete. And one of the things that is required when you're on the field is you got to run. And I was a runner. I wanted to be the Usain Bolt in those days. First of all, this is not that kind of body that can do that pounding on that field. It's not. But who's going to tell me that? And I had a coach all the time. He kept looking at me and he says, hey, you can do this. You got to run faster. You got to run faster. And then I met an old man who has been on that field for a long time. He took me aside and he had seen me work every morning between 4 and 6 on that ground. By the way, he used to come in at 3:30.